Hello YouTube, De-bodgery here. Welcome to EV Components Review. This is a Koto Pro controller. There it is. It's obviously used. This was sent to me by a friend, and I will get to this in just a second. So, a quickie announcement. Folks, I have been out sick for a good little while. Yeah, I was pretty much in bed for a good little bit. Didn't get much else done. Yeah, motors didn't happen. TP128 stuff didn't happen. Most of the stuff that I could ship out that was relatively easy, that has all been shipped out. I still have a few left to do because there's some people that want some rewinds and they knew that it was going to take longer to get those done than anything else. So I set their expectations a good while back that they were going to be, you know, the last ones to get done just because it's much more involved. Anyway, so I am down to those ones left. That's it on the TP128s. Everything else is all shipped. So anyway, another announcement. I am moving. I've talked about this. I've mentioned it like in my Facebook forum, things like that. I am moving and I should be out of where I am within a month at worst. Maybe a little sooner. I don't know. Just kind of depends on the details. I am packing up my house. And that is a giant pain in the neck. Anyway, so I am moving and joining forces with another person who has an EV business. He's got like a 10 or 12,000 square foot warehouse space where he does his EV business out of. There's a lot of things he can't do that I can, like say electronics. He can't make wiring harnesses. He can't build battery packs. He can't weld. Or machine, things like that. So I'm going to come in, do a lot of that kind of stuff, teach them a lot of things. And yeah, we're going to make a lot of really cool EVs in his shop right now. Some of them waiting for me, some of them not. Is 25 bikes of different kinds, some motorcycles, some Surons, some e-bikes, things like that. That need to get built. So there is a new YouTube channel called EV-Custom. No content there yet. I literally just created it. But yeah, there's going to be a bunch of video out there that's going to be our builds, that we do in that shop. So expect a new channel with some new content called EV-Custom, not EV-Customs. That's an actual YouTube channel. Yeah, that's not confusing at all. Yeah, EV-Custom. And yeah, that's going to be my builds. That's going to be Mike's builds, our builds together. Yeah, and there should be a lot of content out there after a while. And there's also a new website that's going to be a part of that. And that, again, is going to be ev-custom.com. So, yeah, there's things coming. Of course, that site is just brand spanking new. It's not even hosted anywhere yet because it literally got bought 2 days ago. So anyway, things are coming. Yeah, I'm moving. Yeah, lots of stuff is happening. A lot of moving parts right now. All right, so in a few days' time, I'm going to be doing a bunch of reflow solder work for a customer. I think it's going to be 60 boards that are going to be sent to me that I've got to do a bunch of parts placement on. So yeah, it's a fair bit of work to do all those. And so I'm going to have my reflow stuff set up, which I don't right now. And so a friend of mine, he showed me his Koto Pro controller, which is what this is. And all he was doing is showing it to me. He goes, look what I did. I sheared off one of the phase studs. And I went, well, how'd you do that? He goes, I was loosening the screw and it sheared off. So not cranking on it, loosening it and it sheared off. So, if there's a worst case scenario, just how pathetic and weak these solder joints are, well, there you go. That's it. And I have said that they would shear off, and sure enough, they do. Because, well, I mean, this is not a very strong joint. It's, solder is not intended to be used this way. It's going to do exactly this. It's going to shear off. Lucky for him, it didn't pull up the traces on the board. All right, so I'll get to some of that in a little bit, probably. All right, so I have a Koto Pro controller. I have a Koto Rush controller. I've done an autopsy on a blown-up Rush controller. And now I have a second Pro controller in my possession to do a little bit of repair on. And all 4 of those controllers have clear and obvious evidence of rework on them, repair work on them. All right. So let me show it to you on here. I was curious to see that was the case because, when I showed off my Rush controller, did the teardowns on that stuff, I showed off all of the repairs done on the thing. And then Christopher Kleinschmidt posts a rebuttal video claiming that I'm lying and making it all up. They never do that kind of stuff. And yet the evidence of massive repairs on my Rush controller is everywhere. Does it work? Yes, it does. Should you sell somebody a repaired item as new? Hell no, not ever. You tell them it's a refurb and you give them a massive discount and you're honest about it. You don't sell something that's been massively damaged and repaired and then sell it like it's new. That's called being dishonest. All right, so here is yet another controller sold as new, not sold as a refurb, and with repairs on it. So anyway, here is the logic board. If we look at things like up here in the DC to DC area, the little op amp, the gate drivers, CPU, all this kind of stuff, all this stuff looks like it was machine placed and your typical reflow oven solder work. So I would have to say that pretty much most everything here was not replaced, with a couple of exceptions. So this little chip right there, you can see all the flux around it. You can see how the solder is much shinier because this was all hand soldered. This chip too was hand soldered. You can see the flux all around it. So this is a refurbished logic board for another Pro controller. And that chip were bad and they got replaced. Whatever happened to this controller, it wasn't enough to blow out these protective TVS diodes, like there's some there and those ones, and they commonly blow. Because, something external goes really badly and blows those components. But here they are not replaced, so, they didn't blow for whatever reason, and that's not unusual that they don't blow. That's kind of their purpose, is to shunt whatever overvoltage happens, and in this case, it probably didn't happen, but it blew out this guy and it blew out that guy. All right, and it also probably blew out the Bluetooth chip, or, board. So let's flip this bad boy over before I do. That capacitor right there, that's part of the main DC to DC converter. This is your tweeter. Here is the two current sensor hulls for the two current loops. And I'm showing you those specifically. And obviously, here is your main connector. So now, when I flip this thing over, and this was another thing that Christopher Kleinschmidt lied about. He said, no, our boards are absolutely clean. We don't need to wash them because they're absolutely perfect. And that looks absolutely perfect to me, Christopher. That's not flux all over everything. On that cap, that's not flux all over everything. On that tweeter, nope, that's not flux either. On the Bluetooth module, no flux there. On the two hulls for the current loops, nope, that's not flux. Christopher, that's called lying, dude. Clearly, this board was not washed. So there is a soldering technology that's called wave soldering, and you literally have a wave of solder that passes over the circuit board. And these caps were all wave soldered. So if you look at them, you can see how consistent those solder joints are. They are almost all exactly the same, and that's because all of this was wave soldered. Now, that tweeter, that cap, this connector, those Hall sensors, that Bluetooth module, all of those could have been placed on the board and wave soldered as well. But something happened. Maybe they were originally wave soldered. I cannot speak to that. But something clearly happened because they are all hand soldered, aka replaced. So, lots of repair work done on this power or logic board. Good job, Koto. You guys suck. All right, so let's look at the power stage. I don't see any evidence here of repairs. I really don't. The closest thing I would say to that is that MOSFET's a little bit crooked, but the truth of the matter is in the reflow process, you literally do have molten solder all over the board, and sometimes parts do float a little bit, so that one MOSFET is literally the only thing that's here that's, kind of a little bit wonky, and so it could have very easily have floated on the liquid solder and gotten crooked in the process. So I'm going to say this was probably not repaired, that this was probably built once and sold once as is. So probably not a repair unit. Probably that power stage is just, off the factory floor with a little bit of float on one MOSFET. That's really not that big of a deal. However, another one of the things Christopher said was, no, we wash all of our boards. Everything is super clean, blah, blah, blah. You guys see all that yellow shit on there, right? You see the yellow shit on there. See that crap on there. See this junk around here. That's called flux. It's because this wasn't washed. It wasn't. He's absolutely lying to you when he says their boards are washed. Yeah, look at all the crap in here. Yeah, there's more flux up in there. That's not washed, guys. Just throwing that out there. That's flat out not called washed. That's called not washed. He lies, okay? He absolutely does. Yeah. All right, so I have talked about what a terrible design this is many different times. I mean, you can just look at all the scrap little bits and, bobs of copper thrown together on here. They're not even straight, bridges are crooked. I mean, it's just like a absolutely worst possible scenario. They just don't care ever, and then they lie, tell you how awesome their stuff is, and then they come out with crap like this. You should not trust Koto ever because they make the dregs of crap. And let me talk about one of those details. I don't remember if I talked about this in my videos before, but since I am actually in the process of designing a controller, and it's things that I've definitely been thinking about many times, whether I've expressed it or not, let me talk about it on here. So if you notice this right here, that's the phase bus, that's the phase bus, and that's a phase bus. So those are all pretty much the same size. But this one, it's got these bridges, which are crap, big long piece of this over here, over to the stud. This one over here, it's a little bit shorter distance, but you can see that's shorter than that one. And this one's even shorter yet. Well, this is going to add resistance and inductance. And longer means more inductance and more resistance. Less inductance, less resistance. Kind of in the middle, inductance and resistance of those two. So proper power stage design is your phase buses all have the same current length paths on them so that the inductance and the resistance is the same on all of them. And you can clearly see that's not the case here. This is what's called an unbalanced power stage. They literally did not even bother to care about that, or maybe they didn't even know. Considering how amateurish this work is, I wouldn't put it past them. They just simply had no clue how to build a proper power stage. And again, here's your ceramic caps. There's only 5 of them here, and that's it on this entire board. I'm going to say those are probably 100 NF ceramic caps. I haven't actually measured them, but they look about that size. And I've seen a lot of ceramic caps, and they're all down here in this one end, so they don't do squat over here. They might do a tiny bit here, and they're really only helping these MOSFETs right there. There should be those right in here, and down here too. And obviously they're not. So, just an absolute craptastic design. So in this stud right here, you can see this little shiny spot right there. And if you look at the bottom of the stud, you can see that same kind of moon-shaped shiny spot in there. That's because those two didn't adhere together. In fact, you can see that that's hollow in there. So, that was a giant void underneath this stud to here. And probably that's what broke this loose. It's because it literally was not adhered to the solder, hardly at all, for a large portion of it. You can see how shiny that is. That was not attached to there. Just flat out was not. So loosening this thing, probably it has been slowly breaking loose. Because the only place you actually had solder adhesion for a large portion of this thing was a little tiny line right here and a little bit in there and this over here. So probably this has been really weak for a long time, and just finally in loosening the screw, that was like the last straw. So that's pretty crappy. And I've said these things are going to shear off anyway, and well, there you go. Fortunately, it didn't strip all of the copper off the board. It just simply broke at the solder. And I think that was lucky because this little fissure right there made the weak spot be the solder and not the circuit trace on the board that's not reinforced. So this particular controller got lucky in that regard. and it broke at the place where there wasn't any solder junction or a union. Yep. So yeah, I have a whole pile of controller boards coming my way, probably be here this week, and I need to do a bunch of reflow work on those. And so the owner of this controller, he showed me this, and he wasn't asking me to repair it. He just was showing it to me because I've talked about all this stuff. And I went, you know, you can send me that controller. And he goes, I can? I went, yeah, sure. I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of reflow work like in another week. And I can absolutely take up your power stage, put it on my my reflow table, and reattach that stud for you. And he goes, really? You'll do that for me? I was like, yeah, absolutely. It's not even hard to do. So yeah, I have his KO Pro controller, so I can reattach that stud. I will add more solder, and I will do that to all these as well, just to make sure that they are well attached. So one last detail that I found when I took this thing apart, and oh, by the way, he hasn't had this controller apart. The only person who has is me. So you'll notice these little nylon spacers, they just kind of float in there. So this is to keep the screws, oops, yes, yeah, that's one of them. No, the longer one, sorry, go. That one, that's to keep these screws from when they press the board down to the studs from making contact to the brass stud, because they are screwed into the aluminum. So that would create a dead short situation, and you do not want that. That makes big sparks and flames and things. Burns out all kinds of stuff. So yeah, that little nylon insulator in there is to make sure that this screw, when it's screwed into here, can't touch the brass. Thing is, though, is I pull this thing apart. That's super good. It's literally not there, folks. Yeah, but you can see them on these ones. It's all here and here and here. But, wonder what happened there, Koto. Gee, I don't know. I mean, come on, guys. Really? This is the best you can do for quality control, and you can't even fix that either? I mean, come on. What a bunch of screw-ups. So, yeah, anyway, another Koto piece of crap, once again, with all kinds of evidences of repair and the typical shit show from Koto. Folks, I've said it 100 times. Don't buy these guys' stuff. It's garbage. God is awful. Buy everything else, anything else, please, other than Koto. Man, this is the worst of the worst. All right, well, that's enough of that. I just thought people would like to see this. It's been a long time since I made a video, and here it is yet again, another KO piece of crap.